Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Gina with Holistic Health Journeys for Women. Give me a second here. I'm trying to connect with Instagram. Anyway, let me get started. So I just came across a study that just came out, just released in the last day or two, breaking news on intermittent fasting and cardiovascular disease. So I think this is worth diving in today. And what I'm doing is starting the conversation now, and I want to spend more time researching. I just got back from a trip, and this is the first thing I came across, and I was like, "Oh, I gotta get into this." So this is definitely something that I'm going to follow and update you on. So this is what's happening. There's a conference in Chicago. It looks like it actually goes until tomorrow, and it's epidemiology and prevention, and it is presented at the American Heart Association conference. And a preliminary research report says that a study of over 20,000 adults found that those who followed an 8-hour time-restricted eating schedule. So there's so many different types of intermittent fasting, but they focused on an 8-hour time-restricted intermittent fasting schedule, that people that did that had a 91% higher risk of death from cardiovascular disease. Okay, and it also says, these are just some of the highlights that I pulled, that people with heart disease or cancer also had an increased risk of cardiovascular death. And compared with a standard schedule of eating across 12 to 16 hours per day, limiting food intake to less than 8 hours per day was not associated with longer living. Okay, so there's a few things to look at. And again, like, this is a constant discussion that's going on in the medical world. And it definitely, we need to just keep researching this, right? Because I primarily work with fertility and hormone health. And I do recommend, I call it intermittent fasting. It's definitely more time-restricted eating. I always tell my fertility patients and clients not to fast more than 12 hours a day. This particular study is talking about people who are not eating for 16 or more hours a day. So let's look at some of the facts that I wrote down here. Again, preliminary research. So I want to see other researchers diving into this. And this study was done on 20,000 people. And what we have to definitely acknowledge here is that of those 20,000 people, roughly half are men. And so we know with research, or what I see, is that men and women react so differently to eating, to exercising, to all the things. So, I would love to see it broken down a little bit more. The other thing that can be a challenge is that all of this information is self-reported. So that means that it wasn't monitored by the researchers for fasting. Like, they're also, that people are self-reporting saying, this week I only ate from 12 to 8 or 11 to 7. So self-reported can be questionable sometimes. It was 20,000 people though. And my thing is that I'm trying to dig in here and figure out, what is the specific mention of foods? If they're self-reporting, are they just saying, what are your eating windows, and that's it? I feel like that's a huge hole that we need to get more information on, because I want to know, from experience working with patients, I know that, just say for instance, when people go on a high protein diet and that's all that they want to do. So if they want to lose weight, they're like, I'm just going to eat whatever I want, high protein. Well, I also had a really good friend when I was in school trying to lose weight who did high protein. There's different ways to do it, right? There's salmon, there's chicken, but she was doing like McDonald's burgers and steaks for dinner, and or every meal. So there's different qualities and dangers of proteins. So we have to keep that in mind. Like, so far, and I'm like digging through all the research, is that I can't find what kinds of food these people were eating during their intermittent fasting window. Okay, so there's no mention of specific foods that I can find. I'm going to dig deeper and then I can update tomorrow if I find that information. And then also, I want to bring up that the number one cause of death for women is heart disease. So that's already happening. I don't know that intermittent fasting is why. I have so many more questions. I think this is interesting research that's come out and that we definitely need to spend more time focused on it. But I have so many more questions that I would love to get answered. And I know that that's probably going to take more research. So I wanted to chime in here. I wanted to give you a heads up on this because this, I mean, to me in the medical world, this is big news, especially for me working with women in fertility. And a lot of the clients and patients that I work with have PCOS or trying to lose weight. This can be effective, intermittent fasting, but there's different types of time restriction and there's different types of windows that are beneficial for those women. But it is always recommended that you are tracked and followed and observed and checked on with a medical professional, a doctor, a nutritionist. Like, somebody has to be helping women do this. It's dangerous to do this on your own. What else do I want to say? So, and I've seen different, like, just conflicting, I want to say, opinions, and then and professionals, right? They're always going to have different sides of a case. And I also see some people saying intermittent fasting can interrupt sleep patterns and cause insomnia. Now, anything can cause insomnia. This is like a big discussion. I'm probably going to do more videos on this one because I can tell you personally, I did intermittent fasting, much shorter eating windows, and I was sleeping much better. Because of physical activity, people have different requirements for food. So I'm much more physically active, and it wasn't a perfect fit for me. I was not trying to lose weight with it. I was trying to see if I could improve my sleep, and it did. That's one thing. That is just one person. That's just my personal experience. But looking at, I always recommend for women, all of my patients and all of my clients, to not eat right before they go to bed. And I always say at least 2 hours, if not 3 hours, not eating before you go to sleep, so you can let your body rest and heal. And that tends to improve sleep quality overall. So that's one thing to factor in. And now back to my original statement with fertility health and intermittent fasting, I call it more time restricted eating, is 12-hour windows. I would not eat less than over 12 hours. And women can get 3 really healthy meals in there. Now, if anybody's doing time restricted eating and they're like, and I actually know, because a good friend of mine, him and his wife are doing this, and they're like, oh, it's amazing. We eat steaks all the time and we can go out to dinner and just eat whatever we want, because then we just cut it down to like 4 hours, and we do this for a few weeks at a time. We lose weight and then we go back to it. Well, that's really confusing to your body, and that is really stressful on most, if not all, of your systems, including your gut health, which is a source of inflammation for most, if not all, people. There's so many things to break down on this. Let me see, what other notes do I have on it? Pretty much it's hard to say across the boards that something is bad for everybody or that something is perfect and will help or heal everybody as well. So we have to be mindful. Again, a reminder to work with somebody who can talk you through and walk you through these steps. It's dangerous to do things like this on your own, especially when there is research out there and it is being tracked, and it just depends on each person's particular path or their health journey. So just factor that in. If you have more questions, by all means, I have more questions, leave them in the comments below, and I will keep following this story and I will report back to you. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Dr. Gina.